Hello, David here, and the project for today is replacing a leaky coolant reservoir on a 98 Ford Contour 2.5 liter V6 motor. And I just noticed a leak when I did that last video on the oil pan gasket job. There was a little puddle under the reservoir. I've known there was a leak for months because I could smell it, but I just couldn't see where it's leaking, so I'm glad I finally found it. It's already disconnected. And it's leaking right about there. I had two choices. I could either get a junkyard part, but whether it leaks or not, the plastic might be brittle and that might crack again. Or I could buy a new part. The Ford dealer no longer carries this part, it's discontinued. I found one at Rock Auto, not a sponsor, and it's made by Dorman. I didn't feel great about buying a Dorman part because they don't have a great reputation for quality control, but I figured this is new plastic and it should last longer. Here's what the replacement part looks like. Looks just like the original. I was surprised that it came with a radiator cap. I wasn't expecting that. Seems like it's good hard plastic. It's made in Taiwan, so that's a plus. Part number 603-597-52821. The thing about plastic is, I don't know if you guys know this, but plastic has a compound in it called plasticizer. And the plasticizer is what gives plastic its flexibility and softness. Over time, from ultraviolet light and high temperatures, that plasticizer migrates out of the material. That's why you get that new car smell in a new car. You're smelling those plastic fumes that's coming out of the plastic. And your dashboard, when your dashboard's sitting in sunlight for years, eventually the plastic on your dashboard gets hard, brittle, and cracks, and that's why a lot of people like to use plastic rejuvenators such as Armor All on their interior. And I've been doing that with my car for 22 years, and I haven't had any problems with the plastic drying out. It looks great. When you think about how the technology has changed in the last 100 years, it seems kind of simple, but we've really learned a lot from automotive engineers. From the old days, it was just a radiator with a plain cap on it, and if the water got too hot, it would boil out and you'd have to fill it up again. Then they came up with the thermostat. The thermostat is a temperature operated valve that goes in the engine block in the water jacket, and that controls the flow of water to the radiator so that it stops the flow of water to the radiator when the engine's cold, and it allows for faster warm-ups so that when on a cold day you get heat quicker to the cabin of the car through the heater core, and once it opens up fully, then it allows the water to go through the radiator, which is just a heat exchanger, and that releases its heat through the radiator, and that water gets cooled off through the air passing through the radiator, and then it recirculates through the engine by a water pump. Later on, the engineers invented a radiator cap that has a spring device in it, which the pressure gets too high, it overcomes the spring and it releases the pressure, and that radiator cap has a valve right next to the cap which allows the water to travel through a hose to a recovery tank, and it happens from the cooling and the heating of the engine coolant. When the water gets too hot, it expands and it goes out through the cap, and then it goes through the tube into the tank, and then when the engine cools off, that creates a vacuum, and that sucks that coolant back into the radiator, and that eliminates any air bubbles or air pockets that might happen in the radiator. An air pocket is bad because the radiator is not able to cool an air pocket. It only can cool fluid. So that's why we always have to bleed the air out of the cooling system whenever you change a fluid. And I got to impress upon you the requirement to change a fluid regularly. These modern coolants have to be changed about every 5 years. And the coolants have an additive in them that protects the engine from corrosion. The head gasket is a metal gasket, and you know about dissimilar metals. You got an aluminum or cast iron block, and then you got a metal alloy that's a head gasket. Those dissimilar metals want to corrode, and the properties of the antifreeze keeps that corrosion from happening, but those properties wear out after several years. So if you don't change that coolant on a regular basis, you're going to blow your engine. You also have to be sure that you never overheat your engine. When you see the temperatures in an overheated state, you have to pull over and stop. If you run an engine for too long, when it's too hot, it'll warp the head, and then you'll just might as well throw that engine away and get another engine. It's very important to use a coolant recommended by the manufacturer. All the manufacturers have different specifications for their engines, and they specify specific coolant chemistry for their automobiles. So some automobile manufacturers say you can use the green stuff, some say they use the red stuff, some say they use the blue stuff, and it's real important to follow that recommendation. If you're ever out in the middle of nowhere and you see the engine's overheating and it's an emergency, you might want to try turning your heater on and turn the heater fan on all the way. That heater core, which is in the dashboard or connected to the firewall, that acts as a radiator. It's a small radiator, but there's a chance that turning the heat on and turning that heater fan on full blast can bleed enough of that heat away from the coolant to drop that temperature down. If the temperature gauge isn't responding to the heater on, you're going to have to pull over and stop and get some help. You notice that this coolant reservoir doesn't have a spring-loaded valve in it. It's just a plain cap. And the engineers have designed an air pocket built into the reservoir where the maximum level is about right here. There's a maximum right there. So this air pocket in here can compress or decompress depending upon the condition of the temperature range at which the engine is operating. So that having an air pocket here is fine because this is not a radiator or heat exchanger. You just don't want to have an air pocket in your radiator. This radiator doesn't have any cap at all. You fill it through here. See this mounting screw here? It's stripped, and I took a punch and kind of punched on the edge of the hole to make it a little bit smaller. So hopefully that'll hold the screw. What I did was I had this piece of zip tie here, and I just put it in that hole. Just like that when I tighten that screw in, just to give it enough tightness to hold. That's a low coolant indicator. Let's see if it came with that too. Yeah, it came with that too. That's a little tube it didn't come with. Take this off and put it on the new one. In an old video a long time ago, I had the low coolant light on the dash, and I replaced that sensor, and it still didn't work. So what I did was I shorted out the connector on here with that paper clip just to keep that light off because it was bugging me. So I'm going to take this jumper out of here. I'm going to hook it up again, see if I have any better luck this time. Got these other 3 hoses to get on. Let's tighten up these clamps. Do not forget to update your maintenance logs. Yes, that's pantyhose that make the best filter. And no, I don't wear them. That's for Joe Namath. When choosing the proper antifreeze, you're going to have to make a decision if you want to get the concentrated antifreeze or the 50-50 mix. The 50-50 mix is 50% water and 50% antifreeze. The antifreeze is most efficient when it's mixed with water in a 50-50 mix. If you're just topping off your cooling system, all you need is a 50-50 mix. Or if you want to save a dollar or two, you could mix up your own from concentrate. Since I flush my system on a regular maintained schedule, I buy the concentrate only because after I do a full flush and drain the system of the water I used to flush it, not all of the water comes out. So if I were to use a 50-50 mix to fill up the system, I wouldn't have a true 50-50 mix with the water that's remaining in the system from the flush. Would be like a 60-40 mix or a 70-30 mix, mostly water, less concentrated antifreeze. It just depends on the design of the cooling jacket. That's why I use the concentrate. Also, what I normally do when I do a flush, I fill up the system at the flushing tee. The flushing tee is right. That's the flushing tee right there. It's got a little cap that twists off, and then you attach your garden hose to it with the motor running. This back flushes all the dirt and sediment out of your cooling system when you do your maintenance. And I just put a funnel into that opening and I fill it until the liquid comes right up to the top. And then I close the cap. And then I go back here to the coolant reservoir and I continue filling over there. In this case, I drained so little fluid out of the system just to remove that hose. I'm going to do the complete fill at the reservoir. There are 16 ounces of antifreeze and 16 ounces of distilled water. Okay, I'm slightly above the max level, but that should settle down once the air bubbles run out. I'm going to start the engine and get it up to operating temperature. You'll know when you get to operating temperature when the cooling fans turn on, and then the water will start circulating through the system and the air will come out of the system. I'm going to leave the cap off the reservoir so that the air could come out of the system. You got to remember to put the cap back on when you start driving it. You can also feel the radiator hose. When that's hot, that means the water is circulating through the system. And you're probably going to have to do about 3 or 4 drive cycles where you cycle through hot and cold. So every time you take the car out, drive it, when you come back, check the level because you might have to add some more fluid to bring it up to the max level. I'm warming the motor up right now. It's real important that once you're finished and got it at the right level, and then you cap off the reservoir, let the pressure and heat build for a while, and then check underneath the car and see if there's any leaks. Sometimes you might have a really small leak that won't show up when the system's not pressurized, but once it's hot and pressurized, a leak will show up. The cooling fan just cycled on for the second time, and all the hoses are hot, reservoir is hot. I'm going to let it cool down, then I'm going to put the reservoir cap on the reservoir. Then I'm going to take it for a drive, and I'll bring it back and check the level again. I'm not worried about overfilling because it does have this overflow vent right here, which just goes out to the ground in the event that you have too much coolant in there. I checked the gauge on the instrument panel, and it is centered in the normal operating position, so I know it's not overheating. There's pretty sure there's no air pockets in there. This engine design has been great. I've never had a problem with air pockets in here. I don't know if it's because I added the flushing tee when I first bought the car or if that's just the design of the water jacket. Two advantages from this project. There's two screws that hold down the reservoir. I showed you before the one in the rear was stripped. I was able to pound that sheet metal back into a little smaller hole, and that's holding now without using a shim. So be careful when you tighten that down not to over tighten. And also this low level coolant indicator is not on anymore. So I think that was a problem with my old reservoir. If you look at the way these are designed, this is the low coolant indicator switch, which I replaced, and it didn't do a darn thing. If you look at it, it's a closed unit, and then if you look in here, I don't know if you can see, this is not exposed to the coolant. So my guess is that there must be a magnet floating around, and then this must react to the magnet. I suppose I could put an ohm meter on the contacts here and run a magnet up and down to see if it works. Wouldn't that be interesting? Anyway, I think I'm going to close this video out. There's not much more I can show you guys and gals. So I want to thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and also ring that bell. And remember, YouTube is no longer sending email notifications to your desktop or laptop. They only go to your smartphone. So long for now. I got the leads of my ohm meter on the low coolant sensor. Put the magnet up to it. See that? So, no magnet. I guess that means it's a open circuit. Not sure what it means. But anyway, it does use a magnetic float. So, when the float goes down, that triggers the light to go on.